Well, no, Sergeant, this ain't the Army. Here I say the have-tos and the don't-have-tos. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you for another one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. Today I'll be reviewing the movie and Blu-ray of Tank, the motion picture starring James Garner. So first I'll be reviewing the movie, then I'll be reviewing the recently released Blu-ray that recently came out by Kino Lorber. So my history with Tank goes all the way back to the 80s when I was a kid. I guess my mom kind of turned me on this movie. I would imagine maybe it was on TV and we recorded it off TV. That's what we did a lot in the 80s. My mom, when we got the VCR, she said, we're not going to be renting from video stores, we're just going to be recording movies off TV. And we did do that, but then we also started renting movies from video stores, so it was the best of both worlds. But I'm pretty sure I most likely first saw Tank, recording it off TV. My mom was kind of a big James Garner fan and stuff like that, so she put me onto this. And me being a kid and stuff like that, boy and stuff, and obviously I liked tanks and stuff as a kid, just like cool or whatever, like cool machinery and stuff, and they had all kinds of RC tanks and all this and that. So obviously she thought it might be up my alley, or at least the last part of the film might be up my alley. And although probably when I was a kid I probably didn't really watch all the movie up until the tank stuff. I probably just watched the tank stuff over and over. Watching it, I've always really liked this movie, and every time I came across it, like at a video store, or the movie always held a special place in my heart. So every time I see the cover of this movie or this title, it's always like, oh, Tank. That's kind of cool. Before I start the review, I just want to quickly show this stuff. I'll probably do separate videos showcasing these more in depth, but I'm a proud owner of this absolutely battered, most likely the very first VHS release of Tank. I'll do a separate video showcasing this in greater detail, but this is probably the very first Tank VHS that ever came out in the 80s, and it's all taped up by the video store or whoever had it before I got it to keep the box from falling apart. That's really cool that I have that. In the future I'll be doing a separate video showcasing that. After that came out, Good Times Home Video in 1998 in North America would put out Tank, would be the first outfit probably to put out Tank on DVD. Full, standard full frame, 1:3:3 aspect ratio, but it got the job done. This is one that I got previously viewed at for $3 at Half Price Books. At some point I'll be doing a separate review showcasing this more in depth as well. And then I ended up finding this in like a $5 DVD bin at some store or something like that, an actual official Universal home video release of Tank from 2004. And this is probably, I would imagine this is a different transfer that's on that than what's on the Good Times DVD, but I haven't really compared them, but I can only assume that it's a different and a better transfer. I would imagine what's on the Good Times DVD is maybe the original film to tape transfer. I haven't done a comparison between the two DVDs I've got, but just to show you that I am in fact a decent sized fan of this movie, I just wanted to show you what I've got. And on the home video front for this movie, before I ended up getting this, of course. And as I said, feel free to, in the days ahead or whenever I actually shoot and upload my showcasings of those particular other home video versions of those releases, feel free to check those videos out as well. So Tank is basically about James Garner plays this Sergeant Major Zach Carey, is this army guy who's been in the army since I think he was a teenager, army brat, and he's got one more post to go, and obviously his family goes from town to town, from post to post, his family being him, his wife, and his son. His older son actually died. They never really specify, before the movie starts. He's dead before the movie starts, probably some accident maybe or something like that or whatever. But the movie starts with them going to this post in Georgia, at this this army post where Sergeant Major Jack Carey is going to go do his army crap there. And so there are new people in town. He ends up meeting up with some people that he knows probably from other posts in the past from the army and stuff like that. So this movie is watching. I probably thought that all of the beginning stuff as a kid was probably boring, but the more I watch it, I make a point to kind of watch this every summer because it's filmed in Georgia and stuff. It has this very summerish thing about it, so I make a point to try to watch this at least once every summer, and every time I watched it within the last several years as an adult, it's like I really, I'm not so keen on necessarily beginning, middle, and end movies and stuff, but the writer for this movie, every time I watch it, he just does such a great job at laying out all these details. So the whole movie basically, I don't know, maybe the first hour of the movie, I didn't really time it or anything like that, but maybe the first 45 minutes to an hour of this movie is just setting up all the chess pieces as to, the reason, so all the chess pieces so that can get us to the eventual point of this movie at the end. Basically this, Sergeant Major Zach Carey is such a, he's been in the Army, I think, since he was a teenager, so he's been this way his whole life in the Army and this and that. And as an adult and stuff, he, on the weekends with his two sons, he tinkered together this Sherman tank, and he basically owns this tank. So when he comes into his final post here in Georgia, he brings, he station wagon with his wife and his teenage son, and the U-Haul, or the vehicle hauling all their belongings and stuff like that, plus the trailer hauling the tank. And he gets the tank all situated and parked at the base when he gets there, and the Soldier magazine comes and interviews him and stuff. So immediately we set up this character as being owning his own, restoring and owning his own Sherman tank and stuff. So basically, so that's already kind of cool. One thing I want to say about in this movie as well is the music is really fantastic, by composed by none other than that Lalo Schifrin. I don't know how the hell to say his name, but the guy who wrote the Mission Impossible theme and did the music for Amityville Horror and Abominable, to name a few movies that he did the music for. But classic famous composer did the music for this movie, and you wouldn't even, what's so great about a really good composer is you wouldn't really even necessarily know it's him, because he does such an Army, just you wouldn't even know it's ever him. But the kind of Army marches and stuff he comes up with are really kind of fun in this movie. So that's another detail I wanted to mention, the pretty great score, Army kind of music in this movie by that famous composer. So trying my best not to do a beat by beat, I will just simply say that he ends up going to the bar and ends up in this little brawl thing with this one deputy guy. He punches him around a bit over a just whatever misunderstanding, this or that or whatever, and then he kind of tries to weasel his way out of it. He being, Sergeant Major Zach Carey, James Garner character, goes to a bar, and he wanted to have dinner with his wife, but she's having like some, NCO wives over or whatever, so she tells him to go to the bar or get dinner in town or whatever. So he understandably probably gets a little drunk, and he's singing to this 20-year-old prostitute, and he ends up in a scuffle with this deputy and punches him up a little bit. And the sheriff of the town is played by that, I think, J.D. Spradlin. I'm sure I've seen him in other things, but he is absolutely amazing in this movie as just this, this southern, just real, oh my gosh, just the sheriff you wouldn't want to, ever cross or mess with. And, that guy who plays the sheriff is just so good and evil and conniving in this movie. And one thing I will say about the bad guy in this movie is I part side with him, because the James Garner character, Zach, he actually does try to weasel out of, because he knows people at the Army base and stuff, and when the sheriff comes to, actually get him and put him under arrest and charge him for, assaulting an officer and, drunken disorderly charges and all this stuff, he uses his, the fact that he knows his friends at the Army base, at the Army base, to try to weasel out of it. So I partly kind of side in a way with the quote-unquote bad guy of this movie, the sheriff of this town, because he's partly in the right. I mean, the Sergeant Major, Zach, did a crime, technically, by, punching up and scarring up his deputy, so, and he tried to weasel out. I mean, he really should, pay the piper or whatever. But, so, that's one of the cool aspects about this movie that's like, holy cow, I kind of side in a little bit at the beginning with the sheriff, because the James Garner character is trying to weasel out of, his comeuppance, or whatever the hell you want to call it, weasel out of his punishment for what he did to the deputy. What the sheriff ends up doing is, because he can't get to Zach, James Garner character directly, he ends up harassing his son and planting, like marijuana in his son's locker at school so he can arrest basically his son. And he gets to, James Garner's character through his son, which, because they set up so amazingly well the fact that he had two sons and his older son died in some kind of maybe army-related accident. There's a picture of him we see in the movie, so his son was obviously probably in the army too. I imagine he died trying to do something or whatever. They mentioned that he, died, maybe he was trying to impress dad or whatever, but he died in some accident. So obviously, having this teenage son, 15 or 16 years old, and he's just got a few more years left at home. He intends to just finish out his last post and retire on the fishing boat or whatever. So what's really great about this movie is they set up right away that he had two sons, lost one, and the one he's got left, is very important to him. So when obviously the sheriff doesn't necessarily know that per se, but when the sheriff uses his son and frames him and puts him in jail to get to James Garner's character, I mean, that's just like, oh my God. And it doesn't even end there. He's like, he tries to get this money out of him, and then he tells him not to, he shows him this work farm where they got the prisoners working and stuff like that, and he warns the sheriff warns James Garner character to not get some lawyer down here, and then the wife ends up doing that, which makes the sheriff pissed off, and it furthers him, to actually bring the boy to the work farm, and then the sheriff wants $10,000, and he brings him that, and he's like, well, since you did what I said not to do, and you brought the lawyer down here, your lawyer's in jail, and I'll take the $10,000. This will keep your son alive for a year. And after that, who knows, he might get shot trying to escape. So, I mean, it's just by the time you get to I don't know if it's the hour mark of the movie, I should have timed it, but I didn't. But, by the time you get to some point in the movie, it's like, everything that's been done, or everything he does, to try to get the son back, and his wife kind of screwed it up by calling a lawyer into the situation, and all this and that, and the evil, quote unquote evil sheriff has got him. He's just like, he's got his son on a work farm where he might get raped, or who knows what else, shot trying to escape. And so obviously by the time you get to the hour point of the movie, or whenever the hell it is, James Garner character is laying in bed, and he's just like, you know what, I've got one final option here. So he goes and opens the garage, wherever the hell, probably at the army base. He's got the tank stored. He turns on the tank, and basically breaks out of takes the tank out of where it's kept at the army base, and goes to the sheriff's office to break his son out. But actually, no, he doesn't even know he's been sent to I don't know. I don't think he was supposed to have been sent to the farm already. He goes to the labor farm for the prisoners. He goes to the sheriff's office to try to break his son out of jail, but he's already at the work camp or whatever. So there's this really cool scene where probably what I really liked as a kid, where he gets the people out of jail and humiliates that deputy again by having him strip naked and chain him to a pole or whatever, and he drives the tank through this old dilapidated, I can only assume this is like an actual old sheriff building that was going to be destroyed anyway or something. I don't imagine they built this for the movie. They may, I don't know. But, they actually, he drives this tank through the sheriff's office, the jail, and just completely destroys the building just by driving the tank through it and stuff like that. It was really cool. And he comes out one wall and drives where the deputy's got his car parked, and drives over the car, flattening it, and it's just like really cool. And he's like, take the radio out of that, rip the radio out of that squad car. He's like, I can't do that. The sheriff would kill me. And he's like, you're probably right. And he turns the turret around and blows the whole car up. So, I mean, obviously I probably as a kid just watched the end of the movie probably on repeat, and probably didn't watch the stuff that led up to it. It's funny, as an adult, it's like I like the whole movie now. Like, the stuff that leads up to it is so competently written and done that it's just, for me, it's fun to watch the whole thing. And as an adult now, I'm more interested in character development, and just characters, and what motivates characters. And the script is so incredibly well written, where you really just, you really understand what the James Garner character is going through, having lost one son already, and then having his last son in the custody of this evil, conniving guy, which who knows what he'll do to his son or let happen to his son, which obviously drives James Garner to do what he does by, going to get him in the tank or whatever. And after that happens, he goes to the work farm, breaks him out of the work farm, and then the rest of the movie. What's so funny is this woman who plays the 20-year-old prostitute, who's basically the main reason, kind of in a way, that this all got started, because he was just talking to her at the bar and doing this drunk singing and stuff like that. She ends up, when he destroys the jail, she ends up hitching a ride. She's like a local prostitute for the town or whatever, basically working for what we can only assume is like just working for the sheriff, really. I mean, a prostitute working for the sheriff, it looks like, but it's the South, so you gotta love that setup. But she ends up, of course she's wearing, like short shorts and tank top, and looks like she's got some kind of breast augmentation, because I don't know if I've seen it in a still photo. I think it's on the back of this Universal DVD, or yeah, where it's like, one of the nipples is like down here and the other nipple's like up here, and it's just like, yeah, those might not be good for topless scenes, but you might be able to get away with the tank top with that augmentation you got going on there. But once, we've got the hot chick in the tank top and the short shorts riding, also on the run with James Garner in the tank, and he goes and breaks his son out of the work camp. So it's all three of them. Basically, here, son, this is the whole, this 20-year-old prostitute is basically the whole reason all this is happening. So she's going to be riding with us, because in the story's plot point, she's got to, they're going to ride to the state line so that she can testify or whatever. But we all know it's just to have like a quote-unquote hot chick along for the ride or whatever. But I guess story-wise it does make sense. She can testify or whatever. But the remainder of the movie is this, James Garner, his son, and the 20-year-old prostitute just trying to head for the border so they can actually try to get a fair trial. And then his wife, played by Shirley Jones, also helps out by putting on her suit and suit dress, whatever the hell you call it when you're a woman, your formal clothes, and going to talk to the governor of the state. I can't remember which state is it Tennessee maybe or something like that, what state they're heading for the state line. But she goes and talks to him and kind of blackmails him into hearing the plight of her husband or her son and the 20-year-old prostitute, and giving them a fair trial or whatever. So the rest of the movie is what you kind of paid to see, is the tank dilapidating stuff. And there's this really cool scene where they set up like a quote-unquote roadblock with 3 cop cars on the road, and they're like, the tank's coming at them, and they're shooting their little pea shooters at them. It's like ding, bing, 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 bing. This is after I think they got the 20-year-old prostitute and his son and in the tank, and they're heading for the state line, and all 3 cars are lined up on the road as a roadblock, and the tank just drives effortlessly over all 3 of them and continues on its way. That is a really cool part as well, and that's what, as I said, that's what you're paying for. That's what you bought your ticket for, to see the tank dilapidation or the tank destruction stuff going on. And throughout the course of the movie, they end up needing gas, so they end up coming across this guy. And as I've said before in reviews like Career Opportunities and stuff, I haven't reviewed Blood Salvage yet, but if you see this one guy who plays Jake in Blood Salvage, or the guy who works at the gas station from Career Opportunities, if you see this guy in a movie, the movie was filmed in Georgia. That guy has a kind of a substantial little mini role in this movie as this character by the name of Gant, I think, who helps out the James Garner character and the characters in the tank by giving them some gas and supplies and stuff, because he had a sister who had a son that was also on that work farm that never did come back. So that guy plays a little bit of a kind of a featured role in this movie as well, the guy who would go on to play Jake in Blood Salvage. As the movie wraps up, then the sheriff, the evil sheriff guy, recruits, deputizes a bunch of hillbillies, beer-gutted hillbillies and stuff like that to try to, help him stop. They go to the border as well, because now by the time the movie's towards the end of the movie and stuff, this is all televised on TV, and everyone in town and both state lines and both sides of the state line know all about it. So all kinds of people are there, and people cheering him on from the other side of the border. And then obviously the evil sheriff can go put a bunch of semi trucks over towards the at the border to try to foul up their plans to get across the state line and all this and that. So it's really a kind of a cool movie, and I guess I probably don't have to, maybe I won't spoil it and say what happens, but it's really funny. There's this biker gang who really helps out the characters in the tank, and this one lead biker guy looks a lot like Bill Rebane probably looked at the time. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, God, is that, Bill Rebane? Was he in Georgia on vacation and they were happening to film this movie? I mean, it just looks like it could be Bill Rebane or his twin brother, this main biker guy who does this jump, ties a rope around himself and does this jump to get to the tank to pull a cable to attach it to pull the tank to, cross the state line or whatever. But I guess I was going to not say what happens in the movie. I guess I kind of accidentally did. It doesn't matter. It's a movie that's nearly 40 years old after all, and one that, but chances are you don't care about anyway. So I mean, obviously a movie like this is going to have a quote-unquote happy ending, or if you will, but it's something that, I mean, I didn't watch a whole hell of a lot when I was a kid, but for some reason, it just left an indelible impression on me where it was just kind of like fun. It's a PG-rated fun movie with a 20-year-old prostitute and an augmented breast and a nipple up here and a nipple down there and tank top and short shorts and stuff. And I mean, who doesn't like, you don't have to like the military to like, a tank, like a Sherman tank. I mean, who doesn't like a Sherman tank just from a technological standpoint of, wow, that's really cool. So, I mean, you can understand why, a young boy would really go in for this movie. And as I said, as an adult, I probably like this movie a lot more. I like the whole thing versus just the end of Tank. So I think, before I started the review, I was kind of leaning more towards, 3.5 to 3 3/4 stars. But you know what? When I was talking about this thing and how competently written it is, and I think how all the actors are so competently, fill their roles so well, and the music is so great, and just an all-around, just kind of PG, kind of wholesome, kind of not so wholesome, fun, from a Universal movie from 1984. I'm going to just go for it and give Tank 4 stars out of 4 stars. It's, as I said, if you don't like a lot of kind of exposition or setup, this movie might not really be for you. For some reason, I'm not big on exposition or setting up a movie either, but I remember watching this movie summers ago, and I was, as it was unfolding, I was saying, they should show this to students in film school or writing class, because I'm not a big one for, story setup and, beginning, middle, and end per se, but I got to tell you that how competently written this movie is should be, something that should be studied for, screenwriting enthusiasts or whatever, because it's setting up the chessboard in such an amazing way, just to to give the character's the main character of James Garner character the motivation to do what he does towards the end of the movie. I mean, you just, by the time he gets to that point, you're just like 100% on board with them, maybe even 110% on board. The movie was really written extremely competently. Now on to my review of the Blu-ray, Kino Lorber Blu-ray release of Tank, which recently came out. I was kind of disappointed because Kino Lorber's been, sending these out with, slipcases. My Blu-ray of Deep Star 6 and my Blu-ray of Killdozer both had slipcases. I can only assume, based on artwork that I've seen online, that this has a slipcase as well. Unfortunately, I got this from that website named after that big rainforest. So unfortunately I didn't get a slipcase. I did some searching on eBay to see if I could find one with a slipcase, and I didn't find one with a slipcase, so it's a little bit confusing. I don't know if they're shipping this with a slipcase or not, but incidentally, I've always loved the poster art of this movie, and I have contemplated over the years getting the poster off eBay. Since no one really cares about this movie, you can get the original theatrical poster of Tank for, I think, $15 or $20, so it's something I really probably should do, but I don't really have poster space much anymore. But I really love the original poster, and I'm glad that Kino Lorber used the original poster art, and Son looks a little more buff there in the poster than he really is in the movie or whatever. But you gotta love the posters of the movies, from the beginning of movies all the way into, I think the painting for posters kind of ended in the 80s. I don't think they really did the painting posters very much into the 90s, maybe the early 90s, but I think once you got into the 90s, the era of posters made up of paintings kind of fell by the wayside, but I've always loved the poster for this movie, and it almost makes it look like a cartoon. But you can see the 20-year-old prostitute giving the peace sign there on the poster. But first off the bat, hats off to Kino Lorber for using the original poster art for this movie. On the back here you can see not a whole lot of special features, audio commentary by entertainment journalist and author Brian Reisman, radio spots and theatrical trailer. In my opinion, Kino Lorber has some of the most boring disc art that you will find on a Blu-ray disc, but hell, I'm not going to be too hard on them. They put Tank on Blu-ray after all. Unfortunately, this isn't a new 2K or 4K scan or anything like that. From what I understand, this is an older master, but it's definitely gets the job done. It's definitely the best I've ever seen this movie presented in. From what I understand, this master's been floating around online, streaming sites and stuff for quite a while. But as I said, it's, having, grown up with the version and this version, and this version, I'm not going to complain about this version. It's definitely the best way I've ever seen Tank yet. It's probably a little bit better than, it's probably better than the early Universal catalog Blu-rays that they were putting out where they, like the Tremors one and stuff and Waterworld that may have had a little bit of smeary DNR looking images. It's probably better than that. I don't think it's as smeary DNR looking, but of course it's nowhere near as great as the recent 2K scan of Killdozer that Kino Lorber put out recently or anything like that. But as I said, for the price I got it for, I think it's going for $15 or $20. I don't remember what I got it for. I may have got it for under $20, but for the price it's going for, it definitely gets the job done. Would definitely recommend this Blu-ray, obviously, for any Tank aficionados out there, or if any of you watching my reviews, feel pretty safe about, who've been watching my videos and stuff for years, feel pretty safe about just blind buying this based on, my recommendation. If our tastes are, similar or whatever, maybe someone out there would do that, maybe not. I mean, I don't expect anyone to do that. I'm pretty sure I would imagine you'd be able to see this movie on free for online for free somewhere, possibly YouTube, possibly Tubi, who the hell knows, possibly Prime. No complaints about the sound. I'm pretty sure, being a modestly budgeted movie from 1984, it's probably mono, but I don't have a problem with mono. I'd rather have original mono than some kind of 5.1 track that's all souped up with completely changed sound effects, but just presented in original mono DTS sound, which sounds fine to me. Image leaves, compared to what other studios and even Kino Lorber are doing with 2K and 4K scans, the image leaves a little bit to be desired. But once again, for the price point of the movie, or the Blu-ray and all this and that, I guess you can't complain too much. And once again, it's obviously the best way to experience Tank on home video in North America anyway. So I guess that'll probably pretty much do it for my review of Tank movie and Blu-ray. Highly recommended movie for just just fun, kind of just wow, look at that tank go, just fun, just simple PG rated with a 20-year-old prostitute and some innuendo, I guess. There's the things they could get away with in the 80s and PG. It really makes your eyebrows go like, holy crap, because there's all kinds of things that as an adult that are insinuated and this and that, and that evil sheriff talks about, your son is going to be really popular up on that farm because we got some degenerates up on that farm, and I can't stop the course of true love. And it's just like, I should have done those lines with the accent, but I forgot. But there's just a lot of, it's PG, there's a lot of innuendo, or whatever you want to call it, just things that are ideas that are presented anyway. And you also get to see James Cromwell like naked, his ass. I shouldn't say get to, I don't watch it, I cover up that part of the screen with my hand. But if you want to see James Cromwell from the 80s naked, or his ass, watch Tank. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one. When I was a little boy or so, my mother told me, way haul away, we'll haul away.